Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know how much we love digging into the latest and greatest in space exploration?
I'd say.
And today, well, let's just say we got something truly special.
It's a big one.
Hot off the press, practically.
Literally just came out like days ago.
We're talking about NASA's brand new long-term strategy for exploring Mars.
Yeah, this is not just some random announcement. It's a detailed roadmap, like a blueprint, for the next 20 years of robotic missions to the Red Planet.
20 years, that's a pretty serious commitment, right?
Absolutely. This is a long game for NASA, showing they're serious about unlocking Mars mysteries.
And what's really got me hooked is, well, it feels different this time. It's like almost like they're taking a page out of Silicon Valley's playbook.
Oh, you mean that whole move fast and break things kind of approach?
Exactly. Applied to space, of course.
Yeah.
But it's that same sense of rapid innovation.
I see what you mean. It's a shift, for sure. The plan moves away from those massive one-off missions like Curiosity and Perseverance.
Right, which were incredible, don't get me wrong.
Oh, absolutely groundbreaking. But those took years, decades even, and billions of dollars to develop. This new strategy is all about a steady cadence of smaller, more targeted missions, each one coming in at around, well, somewhere between $100 million to $300 million.
So more missions more often. But does that mean we're skimping on the science side of things?
Not at all. In fact, it might even lead to more exciting discoveries. Think of it this way. Each mission is laser-focused on a very specific scientific question. Like, instead of trying to map the entire planet at once, they're really zooming in on areas of interest and digging deep.
So like chapters in a book, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just skimming the whole thing.
Perfect analogy. You get a much richer understanding that way.
But what are those chapters, so to speak? What are the big questions driving all these missions?
Well, the plan lays out three major themes, and they're all interconnected. Searching for signs of past or present life.
Always a big one.
For sure. Supporting future human exploration and understanding Mars as a dynamic, evolving system.
Okay, gotta start with the big one, the search for life. I mean, the idea that we might find evidence we're not alone in the universe. Mind-blowing. How do they plan on tackling that?
So they'll be on the lookout for what we call biosignatures.
Which are?
Basically, chemical or physical traces that could hint at past or even present life. Could be fossilized microbes, organic molecules, you name it. And it's not just the surface they're looking at. They're going to be exploring the Martian subsurface, too.
Oh, way there.
Well, conditions there might be more hospitable, especially for microbial life.
Fascinating. So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, looking at different places, using different techniques, all to try and answer that huge question. But let's talk human exploration. How do these robotic missions set the stage for astronauts on Mars one day?
Great question. They'll be gathering all sorts of crucial data about the Martian environment, things like identifying potential resources like water ice that future human settlements could use, plus even testing technologies that would be vital for humans to survive there.
Like what kinds of things?
Oh, think extracting oxygen from the Martian atmosphere, maybe even figuring out how to grow food in that Martian soil.
So it's not just about understanding Mars for the sake of it. It's about actually laying the groundwork for humans being there one day.
Exactly.
And what about that dynamic system theme? What does that even mean?
Essentially, it means studying Mars as a planet that's constantly changing and evolving. They'll be looking at things like the Martian atmosphere, its climate history, the geology, the processes that have shaped the planet over billions of years, and even how Mars interacts with the sun and other planets.
So like figuring out the personality of Mars,
Yeah.
how it's worked over eons.
Yeah, and all that knowledge. It can help us understand not only Mars, but our own planet better too,
That makes sense. But with all these missions and big scientific goals, gotta ask, how can NASA realistically afford all this? Especially when budgets are tight. Space exploration isn't exactly known for being cheap.
And that's where things get even more interesting. One of the core pillars of this new strategy is, well, collaboration. Not just with other countries, but with commercial companies too.
Wait, commercial companies going to Mars? It sounds like something out of science fiction.
It's becoming reality. Think SpaceX, Blue Origin, those guys. They're already making huge waves in the space industry. And NASA's smart. They're recognizing that expertise and looking to partner up for everything from launching these missions to developing cutting-edge tech that can make exploring Mars way more affordable.
I'm starting to see the genius here. By embracing these public-private partnerships, NASA gets to leverage all that innovation and cost-effectiveness from the commercial world.
Win-win for everyone, right?
Definitely. So we've got a good idea of the what of this plan. Smaller, more frequent missions focused on those three key themes, all powered by a spirit of collaboration. But how about the how? How are they going to pull this off in practice?
Well, that's where things get even more exciting, and that's exactly what we'll be diving into next.
Ooh, a cliffhanger. Well, listeners, you'll have to stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive to find out more. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.
This is just the beginning of an incredible journey.
For sure. So until then, keep looking up and keep exploring.
Okay, so picking up where we left off, the how of NASA's big plan. It's not just about shiny new missions, it's about using what's already up there.
Right, like all that existing infrastructure around Mars, the orbiters and rovers.
You got it. The plan is really big on keeping that stuff going strong, even upgrading it.
Kind of like, I don't know, you wouldn't build a new house without making sure the foundation was solid, would you?
Perfect analogy. Same goes for exploring Mars. You need that strong base.
Okay, but give me some examples. What exactly is this infrastructure, and why is it so important?
Sure. Take the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, been circling Mars since like 2006. That thing gives us high-res images of the surface, vital for picking landing spots for future missions.
And for just studying the planet, right?
Absolutely. Geology, climate, the whole shebang. It's like having a scout up there, giving us the big picture.
Ah, scout in the sky. I like that. What else?
Then there's the communication relays, crucial for getting data back from the rovers on the surface.
Right. Otherwise, we'd be totally in the dark about what they're finding.
Exactly. It's like, imagine cell towers on Mars, keeping us connected.
Mars cell service, now that's an idea. But seriously, all that stuff's been up there a while. Isn't it getting a bit, well, old?
Well, yeah, like any tech, it's got a lifespan. So that's why the plan includes investing in upgrades, replacements, to make sure it keeps working for years to come.
Makes sense. So, like, new orbiters with even better instruments, things like that.
You got it. Or maybe even totally new types of relays, more efficient, more robust, future-proof.
Like doing regular maintenance on your car. Got to keep it running smoothly. But what about those smaller missions we talked about? How do they fit into this infrastructure picture?
That's a good question. A lot of them are actually designed to work with what we already have. Well, some might be super focused on the Martian atmosphere or its magnetic field, things like that, which helps us understand how those things affect the surface,
Yeah, and then that data can be used to, make sense of the images we're getting from the orbiters?
Exactly. It's like different pieces of a puzzle all coming together to give us a complete picture of Mars.
I love that analogy. So these smaller missions, they're more adaptable too, right?
Totally. And they can launch more often, which means we can react quicker to new discoveries.
Ah, so if we find, I don't know, hints of a subsurface lake or something.
Boom. Launch a small mission with the right tools to check it out. We've never had that kind of flexibility before.
Like a rapid response team for Mars exploration. That's pretty cool. But I got to ask, with all this focus on smaller missions, are we giving up anything by moving away from those big flagship ones?
It's a fair question. No doubt bigger missions can carry fancier instruments, do more complicated experiments, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so there's a trade-off, right?
Definitely. But smaller missions have their own perks. They're cheaper, so we can launch more. And they can be built faster, so they get to Mars sooner.
Finding that balance, right?
Exactly. Ambition versus practicality, getting the most bang for our scientific buck.
But you mentioned these smaller missions are very targeted. Doesn't that limit the chances of making those, like accidental discoveries, stuff you weren't even looking for?
That's true. Sometimes the best finds are the ones you least expect. But even these focus missions, they can still surprise us.
Because Mars is still so full of mysteries, right?
Exactly. Every time we send something there, we learn new things, and that usually leads to even more questions.
So even if a mission doesn't find exactly what it was sent for, it's still pushing our knowledge forward.
100%. Adding to the puzzle, even if it's not the piece we thought it'd be.
Makes sense. Okay, let's get back to those commercial partnerships for a minute. It's a fascinating idea, but I still don't quite get how it'll work on a practical level.
Okay, well, let's dig into that. One big area where commercial companies are already key players is launch services.
Like SpaceX and their reusable rockets.
Exactly. They've brought the cost of getting stuff into space way down, and NASA's smart to take advantage of that for these Mars missions.
So instead of building their own rockets, they can just hitch a ride with a commercial provider.
Yep. Frees up NASA to focus on, the actual spacecraft, the instruments, that kind of thing.
Smart move. So they're outsourcing the transportation, basically.
You could say that. But it's more than just launching. Commercial companies are coming up with totally new tech that could change the game for Mars exploration.
Give me an example.
Some are working on inflatable habitats, imagine that, like blow up living spaces for astronauts on Mars.
That's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right, or 3D printing to build structures right there on Mars using Martian materials.
Whoa. Using the planet itself to build stuff. That's
Right.
incredible.
And it's not just hardware. These companies bring a whole new way of doing things. They're quicker, more willing to try new things, which could lead to breakthroughs faster.
So it's that culture of innovation that they bring to the table.
Exactly. It's a whole new way of thinking about space exploration. And it could be how we explore not just Mars, but way beyond.
It really does feel like a whole new chapter for space exploration, one where it's all about teamwork and new ideas.
I'd agree with that. And it's a super exciting time to be following all this Mars stuff, this new approach with smaller missions more often, bringing in partners, making the most of what we already have. It's just, well, it feels so much more sustainable.
And it's more than just the science itself, right? It's just inherently inspiring. Humans reaching out to explore another world. It's pushing the limits of what we can do.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's proof of how ingenious we are as a species. Our curiosity about the universe, it's limitless.
Okay, gotta ask, what has you most fired up about this whole Mars future? What are you personally hoping to see happen in these next 20 years?
Honestly, it's the stuff we don't know yet. That's what really gets me going. We're learning new things about Mars all the time, things that make us question what we thought we knew, opening up whole new areas of research. Who knows what we'll find in the next couple decades? Maybe proof there was life there, maybe resources that could help us actually live on Mars someday. Or who knows, something totally unexpected, something that changes how we understand the universe completely.
Yeah, the possibilities are kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
It is, and that's the best part. We're not just exploring Mars, we're exploring the unknown itself.
Love that. So what about you? What are you most curious about?
For me, I keep coming back to that question of, well, life. Was it ever there on Mars? Is it still there, maybe hidden underground somewhere? That answer, if we find it, it would be huge. Not just for science, but for how we see ourselves, our place in the cosmos.
Yeah, that's a question that resonates with everyone, I think. Are we alone out here? And maybe, just maybe, Mars holds that answer.
Could be.
Well, listeners, we've covered a lot today, but this is really just the start of the conversation. We'd love to hear what you're thinking. What are your thoughts on all this? What's got you excited about the future of Mars exploration?
Hit us up in the comments. Let's keep this discussion going.
And if you're as into space as we are, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into all the coolest stuff happening in science and tech. Until next time, keep looking up and keep exploring.